Moving from home to senior living is not usually an easy experience, especially when you're not expecting it. I'm your host, Valerie Borgman, and today we're talking with Angie about her mom's unexpected move into a nursing home, roommates that worked and roommates that didn't, and her dad's adjustment to living at home alone.
Sometimes he would think, like he would sit in his, a lot of times he'd sit in his chair at night in the bedroom. When she was there, she would be out in the recliner and she would yell out for him if she needed help. Well, sometimes to this day, he says that he dreams or he thinks he hears her.
Welcome to Desperately Seeking Senior Living, a podcast for sons, daughters, grandkids, and spouses who suddenly find themselves tangled in the search for senior living and care. If you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and check out our doable download in today's show notes for a printable summary of the show and a bonus tip from our guest.
I had to do everything on my own from scratch, figure everything out. I had no one to give me advice on what to do, what not to do, what to look for, what not to look for. So definitely an experience, that's for sure.
Wow. So what was that like? Like, what was the point where everyone was like, okay, we need to find senior living?
Well, her knees were bad and she was not healthy enough to have surgery. The orthopedic surgeon told her that, you're diabetic, you have heart issues and, high blood pressure, things like that. And you're not healthy enough to go back in and fix your knees because she had already had knee and hip surgery. So she was getting to the point where she couldn't walk anymore and she was falling a lot. From there, she was at the hospital for probably a week. And then they sent her to rehab and her upper body strength wasn't enough to transfer herself from different objects, like from the wheelchair to the toilet or, and back onto the wheelchair or from bed to the wheelchair. She wasn't able to do all that. So it came to a point where we just decided to switch her over to immediate care over in the same nursing home. So before she left the hospital, I went to several nursing homes within the community to check them out. And one was really scary.
Oh,
Like,
no.
yeah, I'm like, there's no way my mom would be able to stay here. It was just dark and dreary, and all the rooms were and there was no windows. It was terrible. So she ended up doing rehab at the villas. And so we decided to leave her there. It was so difficult for change for her, any kind of change.
So she went into the nursing home, and the nursing home also had independent living and assisted living.
Yes.
What was that conversation like where she realized she couldn't go back to her house?
It was kind of devastating. It was really hard. It was like one of the most difficult conversations we had had with her because we told her that she needed to try her hardest in rehab to be able to transfer. And she just, I don't know. I don't know if she just gave up because it was so hard or what it was. She doesn't really have any memory issues. I don't know if it's stubbornness or just hard headed. Didn't really quite get it that she needed to work very hard at it, and try her best to be able to transfer herself.
So when you had that conversation, was she a part of the process?
Not necessarily, because it was basically the wing she is in is like a nursing home. There's 2 beds in it, or there's a private room that she could have had, but that was quite a bit more. So since my mom and dad did not have long-term care insurance, all that we could really do was put her in with another roommate.
So she ended up in long-term care in a nursing home. That's where she lives.
Yes, yes. He went from rehab to that nursing home to basically long-term care, immediate care.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks sometimes don't even realize that that's an option, but that is one of the options out there. I am really curious what that process was like for you, not having any help to go and look at places. You mentioned that you toured a few, but how did you even know where to go and the financial piece? And how did you figure all of that out?
My dad, he's on the financial side, but I just kind of knew to go to places that I had heard people mention before, or I actually just Googled long-term care facilities in the area. And I had also remembered some our older family members that had passed had been at some of the other facilities too. So I went there. The villa was the right choice. She's really difficult with change, even with her CNAs. That's still an issue to this day, 7 years later.
Like with staff changes?
Yes. Like, she doesn't like men waiting on her, and I think it's just a privacy issue, but there's some guys that she will let take care of her. It's really hard on her for because she likes things done a certain way, and I guess that's just the thing about her mind being all there. She likes things done a certain way, and a lot of times the help is not used to that. A lot of those people don't talk. They don't voice their opinion on things.
How has that been for you and for her?
Very stressful. Very stressful because I've had to go in there and talk to her about, like, "Mom, you need to remember these people are human and they have a life outside of their work. This is their job." I said, "I know you're living here and you have what's dealt to you. So, but you got to remember they're human too and they have feelings."
Does the staff call you and say, "Hey, can you talk to your mom?"
Yes. Like, "We have an issue." And I'm like, "Oh God, what now?" But I mean, honestly, I mean, when the phone rings and I see it's them coming up on my phone, I'm like, "Uh-oh, is this gonna be good or bad?"
Yeah, there's probably families listening right now that are like, "Yep, we know what that's like."
Yes. So she's been a lot better lately in that aspect, but the phone used to ring at least once or twice a week for a while.
And that was in the beginning?
Yeah, yeah. But I would say every now and then they'll call and say, "Your mom's being really difficult." I'm like, "What do you want me to do about it?" I mean, I can talk to her, but I mean, and even my daughter goes and sees her. So my daughter talks to her a lot, calms her down.
What are some of the things that she calls about?
Like at night, she does go to the bathroom a lot at night when she has to go to the bathroom. I mean, everywhere is shorthanded, so they're shorthanded too. So it takes them a little bit longer to get to her. And she just doesn't like wetting herself or wetting the bed.
I agree.
Yes, yes. And she also doesn't like when, like, when the power goes off, the doors shut,
Yes.
all the doors shut in the facilities. She does not like that at all. So that kind of gets her startled and upset. And then she feels like she's not being heard when she calls for help.
It doesn't add to the list of, you left your home for this.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what was it like? Because she has a roommate.
She did have a roommate for a long time before COVID. She was a pretty quiet roommate, which worked out good for my mom. And the roommate left the blinds open. My mom's room is closer to the door. That's what she prefers. But the person that's closest to the window has a say so of the blinds. That lady left the blinds open all the time. So mom has a bird feeder out there. She can watch the birds or watch the traffic. Sometimes she can see the employees coming and going out that window. So that gives her something to look at. But after COVID, when she came back from the hospital, she was in a room by herself, but everybody was. So, and then, I mean, and it's been pretty good for the most part ever since. And she hasn't had a roommate. I think they've tried a couple roommates because it takes some time they've got to be a lot alike and it just takes some time to find the right roommate. And she got a roommate last week. And it was a tough go at first, but now I think it's okay.
Yeah, like we talked about, there are some families that have to share, their loved one has to share a room. And of course, it's always with the same sex.
Yes.
So, what was that process like? Because there are some places that don't have the ability to try different
Right.
roommates.
Yeah. Basically, I told my mom ahead of time, and my mom's like, "Oh boy, my mom's not good with change at all." So, like, a couple of the roommates, they don't have the same like schedule as my mom, sleeping schedule or just everyday routine schedule, or they sleep all day and have the blinds closed all day. And that's kind of depressing for my mom. She enjoys looking out the window at the birds. And, like if we were to come by and just stop by real quick and visit, just knock on the window or whatever. So that was hard. So was in a room by herself for a long time, and we had to pay private pay. But now she got a roommate this week, and it seems to be, or last week, it seems to be doing okay. Had a hiccup at first, but now it's okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by ClearPath Senior Living Solutions. ClearPath helps families find assisted living, memory care, and other resources. Find our contact information in today's show notes. I think some listeners might be interested to know more of the details. Like, I love the detail of the difference in schedules
Yeah, we're habit.
or habits. Yeah. What were some of the other hiccups?
Some were, loud and combative. or my mom's in the bathroom a lot. So someone that's in the bathroom a lot also, that's not a good match. It's just little things you don't think of until they try a new roommate. And the funny thing is, when they brought this last roommate in and she sleeps all day and has the blinds closed because she's closest to the bed. Well, they know my mom doesn't like that. I know they're not going to find an exact fit for her, but that's kind of a big thing since, my mom doesn't get to do too many things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but with the ones that didn't work, do they just try it on their own? Try different
Yeah.
roommates?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you weren't even really a part of that.
Not really. No.
Wow.
I think maybe I want to say right after maybe they would call me and say, we just wanted to let you know we're going to try a roommate with your mom and see how it works. I'm like, okay, good luck.
There's probably people going, "Well, I'm just gonna be, like, really difficult so I get my own room." Like, I probably
I
shouldn't put
know.
that in the podcast 'cause everyone's gonna
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah. And I'll have to ask my dad when he gets the bill if the bill is decreased because of her having a roommate.
Angie, that's something we didn't really talk about. Are your parents still married?
Yes.
And were they living together when this happened with your mom when she had her fall?
Yes. Yeah. My dad and I were both taking care of my mom.
So your dad is now living on his own
Yes.
in their home.
Yes.
What was that transition like for your dad?
That was hard on him, because he would come home at night because he worked late. He'd come home at night and think that she was there, and she wasn't, it was dark. Or sometimes he would think like he would sit in his a lot of times he'd sit in his chair at night in the bedroom, and when she was there, she would be out in the recliner, and she would yell out for him if she needed help. Well, sometimes to this day, he says that he dreams or he thinks he hears her calling out at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he is like the sweetest man who is like, I think he's Facebook famous at this point.
Yeah, know. He's definitely something else.
Wow. So that's so tough because I know that's another thing that really weighs on families is when you do have to split spouses up. And I mean, that's just so hard.
That was really hard for them. I mean, I was gonna say him and her because he would go every day to see her. So during COVID, when the facility shut down, he couldn't go and see her or kiss her or hold her hand or nothing. That was the first time in their, say, 55 years of marriage that he couldn't, I want to say 57, that he couldn't, see her. So it was really hard for them not to be able to see each other for over a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for over a year. That was a lot.
How is he doing now? Because she had to move, what, 7 years ago?
Yes.
How is he doing now?
Doing okay.
Do you feel like he adapted?
Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, and he's still lonely, and I think that's another reason why he works so much because it keeps him occupied. I mean, he's always been a guy that works all the time, but it also helps him from not being so lonely.
And he has a lot of fans and
Yeah.
a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Because we should say he owns a bar.
Right. Right. Far and has lots of support.
And that makes a big difference too, having
Yeah.
that support. So,
Yes.
other families that are in this situation, just recognizing the importance of making sure that there is that support for the other spouse.
Yes. Yeah.
The
Definitely.
emotional support.
Yes.
And it's hard, right? Because you're so focused on the physical care for your mom. I bet it
Mhm.
was hard.
Yes, it was very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's always worried, he's 85 and still doing pretty well, but then he's worried. He's like, "Well, what's gonna happen when if you have to put me into a nursing home?" I'm like, "Well, we're not gonna think about that right now."
I feel like everyone is going to want to stay in their home as long as they possibly can.
Yeah. And had we known 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we would've gotten long-term care insurance for them.
Yes. That's the thing is that you can't predict the future. And so it's so hard to think
You
about.
don't. And the years go by so fast,
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see it.
Yeah. So what would you say, with everything that you went through, do you have any advice for other families to just make it easier?
I would say when your parents are still working and haven't hit that retirement age yet, look into the long-term care insurance because that's going to be a big thing because you will either if you don't have that long-term care insurance or don't qualify for it, you will have to sell their assets if you're not financially able to pay for their care. So they could get on Medicaid for the care and then do your research on the facilities. Google is your friend. Visit those facilities even if you live out of town. Make a weekend of it. There are people at the desks there in the offices that can give you tours. Ask about their state inspections. Had I known, back then what I know now, I would have been looking into that.
The whole process is just, I mean, it's stressful. It's so stressful.
It is, and it takes an emotional toll on your body. I mean, I'll never forget the day that we left her there. I think it was a day. It wasn't when she went in for rehab, it was the day we left her there and switched her over to the other side of the facility for long-term care. That was hard. The day I left there, that was very hard. You don't know you're gonna have, like, this breakdown after you leave. That was hard because I knew she wasn't coming home.
Check out this episode's doable download in show notes for details, including industry terms and definitions we discussed, as well as a bonus tip from our guest. Have questions or your own tips to share? Leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, make it doable.